Hey Ritwik, how are
Hi
you?
Jordan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I guess we'll jump right into it. For those of you who are joining us maybe for one of our first Instagram lives or your first Instagram live with us, we've done quite a few now. We every Tuesday and Thursday we meet a current student at Lakehead University. So today, like I said, we're joined by Ritwik, who is studying psychology on the Thunder Bay campus, and he is from India. And we'll be chatting about his experience so far at Lakehead, and we're going to dive into some questions we've prepared already. But if you, as viewers, have questions for Ritwik about his program, about Thunder Bay, about the campus, all that sort of stuff, I do encourage you to submit those either in the comments or the question box. Alrighty, so let's get started. I'll let you introduce yourself actually, and then we'll go from there.
Hi everyone, I'm Ritwik, and as Jordan said, I'm in psychology on Thunder Bay campus. I'm from India, Gujarat.
Awesome. Um, And so, to help our viewers get to know you a bit more, I always like to do a little fun fact. So, what's something that you could share with our audience to help them get to know you a bit better?
The fun fact would be I love medieval history,
Okay,
and I've watched series documentaries as well as read a lot of articles whenever I get time. I also have a passion for science, especially astrophysics.
for sure. Okay, so how did your interest for history kind of expand? Where did it all start, and then what is it at now almost?
I think it all started when I was a kid and I watched Narnia for the first time,
Okay,
and then I started reading about it, and then I started reading about medieval histories. Then I watched a couple of series related to medieval background and everything, politics and the wars, everything related to that, starting with England, then India.
awesome. So it's cool to hear that a fictional movie obviously kind of sparked that interest. I also really enjoyed that movie. It's a great series, but it sparked your interest to kind of explore that. So we're gonna chat a bit about your academics shortly, obviously. But first, I always like to start with each student just chatting about kind of what made you want to study abroad at Lakehead University, and more importantly, what made you select Canada.
So what made me select Canada was the education and how well recognized it is all over the world. Like if I'm going to go an undergrad and I want to go in medical school later, so if I go to med school and I do become a doctor, and if I want to move somewhere else, I won't have to study there as well if I have Canadian education. What made me choose Lakehead was because um, it had small classes, easier to get to know my profs, easier to get recommendations, easier to interact with people, easier to make network connections, and
For
yeah.
sure, yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. With your end goal being to hopefully be a medical school
Mhm.
within Canada, having that extracurricular or those references or letters of recommendation from your professors and the well recognized faculty and staff when you are applying for those schools is so important. And obviously having um, a more in-depth interaction with your professors because you're in smaller classes really
Mhm.
plays well into that.
Yeah.
Um, I also know that you were interested in the fact that undergraduate studies at Lakehead offer quite a bit of research components.
Mhm.
So maybe if you wanted to expand on that a bit.
Yeah, I searched up the research list and the best research universities or undergraduate universities in Canada, and Lakehead was on top, and I think it's been on top for the last 3 years or something. And then I
Yes,
looked up,
it's been 5 consecutive years now that we've been recognized as the
yeah,
number one undergraduate research university in Canada, which is
yeah,
something that we're very proud of because we've definitely put a lot of work into it based on like manpower and the staff that we have here, but of course also the investment financially that we've committed to both undergraduate and graduate studies, and we're recognized for that commitment and
mhm.
that investment.
And then I saw the psychology department and how many research opportunities there were. So that was one of the reasons. And then because Thunder Bay is a smaller region, there's more opportunities to volunteer, join in with the community, help the community, get some experience working at the hospital, and volunteer at places like shelter house maybe.
For sure. And like you had said, like those volunteer opportunities and adding that to your CV plays a
Mm-hmm.
huge role in your application to medical school after the fact. So it's not just your academics as much as one might believe that academics obviously plays a strong role in your application to medical school. You need to have the grades to get in.
Yeah.
You need to have the brain power, as I would say. But also they want to see that you are making a valuable effort
Mm-hmm.
or a commitment to the community. So that's great to see that you're exploring so many different options to meet your end goal. So another thing I also like to chat about is kind of as you prepared your journey to Canada. So as you maybe were packing um, those last few weeks in India, what were you most excited for before you left? But also maybe what were you nervous about before you left?
So the most excited I was about meeting new people from different cultures and getting to know them and see the differences, the similarities, um, and talking to new people. And well, traveling alone was also one of the things I was really excited about. That was something that I had never done before.
Hmm.
I I was always in that comfort zone where I'd move with my family, I'd move with friends, I'd go around, but traveling alone and so far away from home was something that was I was really excited about to um, do it, to feel how it feels like.
For sure. Yeah, you want to get out of your comfort zone, obviously.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, living at home and traveling with your family is one thing, but then doing an entire adventure on your own.
Hmm.
There's a bit of a thrill to it, obviously, just because it's an exciting adventure that you get to experience and only you get to experience. So you are going to live those memories throughout the rest of your life, and you're going to think back like, wow, I made this huge accomplishment. I made this huge journey and I did it all by myself. So that's something obviously you're going to be able to look back and be proud about. And then speaking about new friends, so what has been your experience with meeting new friends and getting to know a diverse range of cultures and backgrounds and religions?
Getting to meet new people was, I think it was accomplished since the moment I got off Canada. When I came to Thunder Bay in my cab, when I was standing and waiting outside for a cab, with the international office volunteers,
Mm-hmm.
um, every one of us was from a different country. There was a security guard standing with us. She was Mexican. The girl who was helping me was Chinese. I was
Mm-hmm.
Indian, and then the cab driver who came was British.
Oh
It
wow.
was it was so much fun, and you could see how nice the people were since I got off because this security guard, she was I think she was really chill, and she was talking about ski diving, and she was showing us how to ski dive or ski um, while standing there. So she was basically dancing on the door, and two other Mexicans came in and they started singing too. So
Wow.
that was my first experience as soon as I got off Thunder Bay.
It sounds like you had almost like an overwhelming experience,
Yeah,
but in the best way possible.
yeah.
Obviously, we have a really great partnership with the airport in Thunder Bay as well as the
Mm-hmm.
Toronto airport, where we offer the free airport pickup service for all new international students, and then that's facilitated by International Student Services. So being able to offer that service for free and just kind of having that welcoming moment and making sure that the last stage of your travel. So from the airport right to your final accommodations, whether it's on campus or off campus, we're there to assist you through that. Obviously, we help you get your bags, get you off the plane, that sort of stuff, and then put you in the cab. But it sounds like you definitely got to meet quite a few characters when you arrived, and it sounds like you had a great time too.
Yeah.
I personally love doing airport pickups. Whenever we have a delegation coming in or a
Mm-hmm.
student that's helping us with a project maybe and we get to go to the airport and meet them, obviously meeting someone virtually is amazing and you can build a relationship through that, but then there's nothing to say like when you meet someone in person for the first
Mm-hmm.
time or just get to welcome someone and like be there for the first step of that journey, like it's really an amazing
Yeah,
experience, and that's
I
why.
actually volunteered too, and it's so much fun. They're all nervous. Most people are very nervous when they come because they're
Mhm.
coming from far in a 30-hour journey maybe. And then when you get to calm them down and help them and make them realize that it's okay to be worried a little bit, it's
For
very fun
sure.
to do it.
Awesome. And then chatting a bit about like what else were you excited for? Were you excited for the program itself? Were you
Yeah,
excited
sure.
for studying?
I was really excited for psychology actually. It was a completely new branch for me. It was something that I had not explored back in India. It wasn't really all that talked about. But when I saw the sections of MCAT, the medical entrance exam, I saw that psychology was a one major component for the exam, and I realized that that's something that I have had no experience with. I knew biology, I knew chemistry, I knew physics, but psychology was something that I had no experience with. So I looked up different books, I looked up a little bit summaries, I started reading, and I got really interested with it. And then I looked up Lakehead's psychology program, and then I saw how helpful that would be for my CV going on to the med school. So yeah, that was something I was really excited about.
Awesome. And then moving on to some of the things that you may have been nervous about, obviously, um, some of these things that you could be nervous about are common within um, a student population that are doing similar journeys.
I think the biggest thing I was nervous about was how my family would cope, how my mom would cope up with this, because she hadn't been away from me, and I hadn't been away from her. But I was really worried about it and how my mom would be able to stay or not cry, not be worried about me, make sure I because she's always made sure that I eat,
Yeah,
and when I start studying, I tend to shut people off, and then I don't eat either for a while. And she's always there. She's always been there to help me with that. But
yeah,
she was really worried on how that would be managed here.
of course, yeah. And so, how did you find that? What was that transition like once you actually arrived in Canada? How did you stay connected with your family back home?
When I just came, I was suffering from jet lag, so I'd be up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'd call them first thing in the morning. I started calling them like twice a day in the
Hmm.
first few weeks. Make sure that they know that I'm eating, that the facilities here are just as good as they thought, and as shown on the internet. We that's and then once the time progressed, now that I'm in second, and now that I'm in third year almost, um, now they've realized that I can take care of myself. I will eat, and now if I'm studying or if I'm not able to call them, if I text them, the transition's been pretty smooth that way. If I don't call them for a week, maybe two, it's okay as long as I'm texting them regularly.
For
So
sure,
that's
yeah.
yeah, so that's something really good.
Well, that's great to hear that you're staying connected with them, and obviously, um, to start off, you definitely wanted to stay on a regular communication basis with them, staying connected twice a day, calling them, and then they also have the opportunity to check up and make sure that everything is going smoothly. But then gaining that confidence and being more sustainable, like by yourself, and then them also having the confidence that like they don't need to check up on you, that you're doing great already.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
So another thing that you were nervous about? I know that you had mentioned like setting your expectations to too high. So do you want to expand on that as well?
yeah, I was so when I was coming, I looked up all the resident. I was gonna stay on campus, so I looked up the residents. I looked up how many extracurricular activities they provide, and then I looked up Thunder Bay. I looked up every different aspect that I'd be facing when I came here. See, and then the people. The it was a really big thing that Canadians are nice and everything. So I was really worried that what if I'm setting it too high and it's not really as good as um, everything's looking like right now, because it seemed like it's too good to be true at some points. And as it turns out, those expectations weren't really that high, because I accomplished all of them in the first year itself. I really did meet good people. I really did meet really nice Canadians almost every time. I the traveling experience really was really good when I came here, and yeah, it always
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that obviously we've met your original expectations. I'm sure
Mhm.
now that you've met those, you've probably set the bar even higher for the next step in your journey.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see that process because I know that you'll be with us for a few more years for sure, finishing up your undergrad.
Yeah.
So now I would love to chat a bit about your undergrad and chat about your
Okay.
academics. When I move on to the section, I always like to chat first about your dream job. So when you
Mhm.
were a little kid back home, um, what was your dream job as a kid? Like, what did you picture yourself doing when you were an adult?
I think the first time I ever thought about getting a job was when I was 9, and that was my dream job was being a doctor. And
Awesome.
so far, I've stayed true to that, and I still want to pursue that.
Hmm. Um, so what specifically helped you envision becoming a doctor, but then also helped you in the path to become a doctor? So both that interest-based learning, but also just your general studies too. How did you start to pursue that?
I think back when I was a kid, I was really interested in exploring biology. So biology was something that I wouldn't have to study a lot because I just understand it so well.
Hmm.
And even though I didn't have to study a lot of it, I really wanted to study a lot of it. Um, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to be a doctor too, because I could see myself studying this subject or this field for hours without getting bored of it, and just wanting to get to know more of it. Like I can't get more of biology. I can't get enough of biology still.
For
Uh,
sure. Yeah. Did you have any other interests within like the science field or even psychology?
yeah, neuroscience, cognitive psychology. Those were two major interests I had. Um, it was they were, Most of it was related to your brains. So neuroscience, psychology, cognitive psychology, they're very interconnected, but at the same time they're very vast. Like
For sure.
can't, yeah, you can't study enough of it. Neuroscience is such a vast field. I think cognitive psychology is a part of neuroscience, and it's a really vast field. And I was really fascinated by it as soon as I read it when I was, I think, 12, 13 years old.
Hmm.
Since then, I've been interested in these fields, and yeah, that was one of the reasons I chose psychology coming here. That psychology, you had a lot of electives in the program in psychology. We had a lot of electives you could choose. I could be doing biology, chemistry, physics, psychology, and neuroscience all at the same time. It was
For
like
sure.
a dream come true almost.
So when you picked the psychology as your major, you recognized the fact that you were going to have the opportunity to still take some of those other interests of the biology and the neuroscience courses as electives, so that they would all eventually build your knowledge base and build your um, continue building on that interest that you already had. And you knew if you're interested in biology, if you're interested in neuroscience, that you would most likely also be successful because if you're interested in a topic, if it's something that you're passionate about, you're more willing to obviously retain the information and expand on it in great detail, which is where we obviously see students being the most successful when they're pursuing a degree that they're truly passionate about. So then chatting now that we've obviously segued into the fact that you picked psychology at Lakehead, let's chat about what you like most about the program.
Like I mentioned before, the small classes. The small
Hmm.
class size is, I don't think people realize how big a factor it plays, because it's really helpful when you get to know the prof on first name basis. You get to know them, you get feedback from them. If you have an idea for a research, if you have an idea on a certain topic, on a certain concept, they can give you such good feedback with their level of experience. And most people in psychology department, most profs are really experienced profs. They've been teaching for 30, 40 years, 40 years. And the amount of feedback you get and seeing just how humble they are, it's a really big boost as a
For
student.
sure. And I can also appreciate the fact that when you're doing research projects or when you're doing assignments, having a smaller class and being having your professor or your faculty member be accessible is so key, because the worst thing is that you could start an assignment, pardon me, or a project or something along that, and then realize that like your idea, your thought process was totally wrong. So being able
Yeah.
to connect with them right off the bat and say like, this is my thought, this is where I want to go with
Mm-hmm.
the project itself. What do you think about it? And like you said, the feedback that they can give can be really beneficial to that.
I think
Awesome.
the other
And then
reason,
is there other reason or other things that you like most about the program too?
yeah, I think again, like I mentioned, the large number of electives, like in psychology program especially, we had a bunch of electives that you could take, and you can still stay true to psychology as a program. So I got to choose a lot of subjects, like I said, like biology, neuroscience. I'm taking all of them. I did anatomy this year. I'm going to be doing physiology next year, and I did neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and I'm still a psychology major and a
Hmm.
biology minor. But and it's so helpful that there's so many electives that I can choose, which will help me in the future.
For sure, definitely. And so I know that you prepared some photos for today's Instagram Live, and I believe you have a photo from one of your anatomy classes. If you wanted to flip your camera and show some of the viewers and just explain what you were doing in that class that day. I think I recognize that and her. So that's Vishwa, one of our coworkers in the International Student Services office. But she's also a student at Lakehead. She's in business, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she's from business, but she
Awesome.
was. I used to tell her about my anatomy labs and how fun it is. So she
Hmm.
wanted to come visit, and she had a class one day, so she came early and sat with me while I did the anatomy lab.
Awesome.
And that's a picture of her being really fascinated by a skull
For sure.
of a real human being.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when she's studying business, she's not going to have too many interactions with anatomy and the human body and biology and whatnot. But I also know I'm a business graduate of Lakehead, so technically, if she wanted to explore those within her electives, she's more than welcome to do that.
Yeah.
Chatting more about the research aspect and like some of those labs, have you been involved in any research thus far?
Yes. In psychology department, the students are always encouraged to join research as a participant. You are you get incentives like credits to participate in research and help graduate students complete the research. While master students and PhD students, they complete researches for their thesis and different reasons. And every undergrad can get hands-on experience and see how it's like to be in a research lab, see how people do their researches. Me, I have been a part of a research as a research assistant to Dr. Tan, who's a really good prof in the psychology department. We have been researching about this new Navut crisis helpline. It's a
Hmm.
suicide prevention helpline, and we develop analysis. We analyze the data that we get from call sheets from the
Hmm.
helpline. It's been a really great experience and a really learning experience being part of that research.
And so, obviously, with that research, where you're analyzing the call logs and what's happening with that helpline, you're able to provide insight to some of the healthcare decision makers as to what services they should be providing to even prevent people from calling that helpline in the future,
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't um, start down that path in a sense.
Yeah, it's a really vast research, and I think it spans over 17 years worth
Wow,
of call logs. I think it's one of the biggest researches that Dr. Tan herself has done, and she has done a lot of research. Um,
definitely.
this has been going on for 2 years now, and I'm
Hmm.
really glad I get to be a part of it as a research assistant. I've got to know things that I would have not known if I was not a part of Lakehead, maybe. So that's a great experience, and Dr. Tan is wonderful. If
Awesome.
anyone ever gets a chance to meet her.
Well, I certainly hope that students, if they aren't necessarily taking psychology, but they might have an interest in it, if
Mm-hmm.
she has any undergraduate or graduate courses being offered that are um, able to be filled in as one of your electives, I would also encourage students to take a class with her. Just based on your recommendation, it sounds like she clearly gives strong guidance in the research aspect, but also just as a professor and maybe even a friend to an extent too.
Yeah,
So
sure.
chatting slightly more, I know I'm going back a bit, but you had mentioned that um, in lots of your classes, your professors will actually incentivize students to participate in research with other graduate students and other research projects happening on campus by offering credit. Can you expand on that and maybe give an example of what that looks like?
For sure. So every master and every PhD student have to complete a thesis to graduate from their courses, and for that they need research participants to participate in the research, give them data of different kinds of research, and there's a bunch of options. So there's this website for psychology students called Sona System, and we we get our accounts activated as soon as we enter in the psychology department. And once you are, you can select courses, you can select researches that you want to be a part of, and you get maybe 1% or one credit for participating in one research, maybe two, maybe three. You can get up to 3 credits from one research. And
Hmm.
I think in my first year psychology course we had 6 credits, so that's 6 extra percentages, so that's a great incentive.
For
And
sure.
plus you get the hands-on experience.
And obviously, like going even further back to what we had already discussed is your dream to become a doctor and join
Mm-hmm.
medical school. And obviously, we touched on the fact that the academics and your marks do play a significant role in that application.
Mm-hmm.
So having strong marks is important, and having
Yeah.
the opportunities to receive extra credit within the course can help you get those really strong marks. But also, just to reiterate, your experience within the research itself. So it's like it has double benefits. So you're getting extra credit for the high
Mm-hmm.
marks and the good grades, but you're also getting some really practical research
Yeah.
experience, which is what medical schools are looking for now. They're looking for students that are volunteering in the community, that are making an effort to be involved and expand their knowledge. They're not just doing the basics anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that plays such a big role into
Yeah.
so many applications. So the next thing I would love to chat about is actually sort of a life-changing moment for you, sort of the moment on campus. So when you joined Lakehead and you realize like, okay, I'm meant to be here. This is a part of my journey, and I'm like so excited for the future.
Okay. Should I show the picture? So this was a picture that I took at 3:30, actually 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
I was coming back from my friend's house. We had gathered up to play some games, watch a movie, and things like that. And
Mhm.
once we were done at like 3:30 or something, I realized that I just can't sleep here. And
Yep.
this was way back in I think September end, and I just can't sleep here because I want to go home. And that's when it hit me that I've started calling Lakehead home. So far, I used to call it room because I stayed on campus, but
Mm-hmm.
then I realized I can't sleep here because I want to go home, and that's when it clicked that this is really my home right now, and I'm really proud that it's my home. I'm happy that it's my home. I want to go back. I want to go back to the campus, go back to my room, sleep. But
For sure.
that was a really big moment then at 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's those late night thoughts that definitely
Yeah.
hit you. But I can absolutely appreciate the fact that you were excited to um, be with your friends, hang out with them. You clearly had a great time. You stayed out late, but then you realized, okay, I want to be in my own bed. I want to be back home, and you had referenced Lakehead as your new second home, or your home away from home, I should say. And that's kind of the moment where it hits you like you're in this journey, and this is like the next steps are just coming so fast, you know?
Yeah.
So something else I want to build off of, I know that you also have a photo um, from when you first arrived on campus.
Yeah.
And I think that also can help tell the story about like making a home away from home and building that friend group.
Mhm.
So if you want to show that photo too, we can chat about it.
This was a picture that we took on the first day on camp, first day of the orientation. we had different places that we could choose to go to, and this was on Fort William Park. And these were the people that I first talked to through Lakehead groups, which
Hmm.
are really helpful. And I met them that day itself, and then we went there, and we had a really fun time. And I'm still friends with them. And
Awesome. And so you said that you met these students like online before even coming to Lakehead, correct?
yeah,
And so, I mean, it's a great opportunity for me to mention for our current viewers that we do actually already have a Facebook group that is called the Incoming Class of 2020 for Lakehead University. And I believe we're at roughly 200 students already in the group, having conversations, meeting each other. They're recognizing students that are going into the same program or the same faculty. They're also meeting people from the same hometown. I forget which city it was. I believe it was Hyderabad in India, where there's already been 5 or 6 students on the group alone that started a thread for people in Hyderabad. And so those connections are happening. And we also know that in some cases, these groups help facilitate roommate selection and getting to know people so that when you do arrive on campus or when you do start your studies, you already have this network built and a network of support that you can fall on. And being that you went to the old Fort William, I think that probably ties in nicely for your passion for history.
yeah,
What was your experience like for old Fort William?
it was really fun. And they had a bunch of, I think, tools and clothes and different things that related to history, medieval things, and how they still do that there. And those were all legit. And it was really fun to be there. Actually, in the first day, you're really nervous on how the school would go, how the orientation would go, and to know people, like you said, from the group. The group was really helpful for me. Everyone I talked to on the group, I got to meet, and it was a really fun experience. There are actually two groups. If you're Indian, you can join the Indian Association as well if you feel that you'd be more comfortable with meeting people from your own country. But I really encourage people to join the incoming class group because that's where I met a lot of good people and a lot of people whom I shared a lot of common interests with. And the group gives you a lot of opportunities to do that too.
For sure, yeah. And could you actually maybe expand for our viewers what the Lakehead University Indian Student Association is and sort of what they
Yeah.
do on campus?
It's an association for Indians and they're responsible for a lot of Indian festivities and a lot of Indian functions that go on here at the outpost. We have an outpost, a pub, and I think actually, yeah, when I got off the airport, the Indian Association was there giving out food and water
Mhm.
to students for free. And as soon as it got down, he asks me, he's like, do you want food?" And I said, "Oh no, I have packed food that my mom sent me." And then he said it in Hindi. He's like, "Oh yeah, great, you have your mom's food. You really do want to eat it right now, right?" And it was wholesome. It felt really good.
And so, chatting a bit more about the Indian Student Association, I know that you mentioned that they host quite a few celebrations and events. What sort of events have you gone to for them?
I think I've been to um, I can't remember the Bollywood night, which is
Mhm.
a regular occurrence almost. I think twice a semester now they're hosted.
Yeah,
It takes place in the outpost, and they play Bollywood songs, Hindi songs, and the fun fact is it's not just Indians who show up to that event. Everyone shows up and everyone has fun. Just the songs, the beat of the song and everything. It's really fun to be there, meet other people, and see that they enjoy these songs just as much as we do. Is
hmm,
really good.
for sure. And you grew up obviously listening to
Hmm.
Bollywood music and the culture that surrounds Bollywood and the celebration of it too.
Yeah,
But then hosting those events on a Canadian university campus, one might expect maybe that obviously it's a great meeting point for Indian students, but then sharing that knowledge and sharing that
yeah,
culture with anyone and everyone that wants to join, there's a really, really great experience. And the inclusion that comes with that too is the fact that even though it might be a short form for the Indian Student Association is Louisa, even though that Louisa hosts these events to celebrate the heritage and culture of Indian students, they're more than welcome to share that same celebration with anyone on
Yeah.
campus. And I enjoy walking around campus and attending some of those events and just seeing like everyone participate. It can be definitely exciting, and that's one of the student groups on campus that focuses
Mhm.
on, of course, Indian culture and heritage and the celebration of that. But there's other groups on campus. I know that we were just last week I interviewed, or sorry, earlier this week, I did an interview with Aliyah from Malaysia, and there's this Southeast Asian student society, and they do quite a few potlucks for students just to feel like a more connected group on campus to kind of remember home a bit more. And um, they have a rule, if I'm not mistaken, where at the potlucks they can only bring food that they could get back home or that they typically ate back home. So it's great to
Just
see
building up
that.
on that, it's also really good that there are many groups or clubs related to your program, so you get to know your peers as well, which is really helpful, and not just for experience but also for your resume and CV. It's really helpful to be a part of those groups. So if you get a chance to join them, you should.
Awesome. So I would love to flip over to some of the questions that we received. We got quite a few on the story for you.
Okay.
Um, so one of the questions was, where in India are you from?
I'm from Ahmedabad, Gujarat.
And also, do you live on campus or off campus?
I lived on campus in the first year, and
Hmm.
now I live off campus.
And so when you moved off campus, did you have to find roommates or did you meet those roommates on campus first, or what was that experience like?
I actually met them in those groups. Um,
Hmm.
I was either gonna move with a couple of my friends from Canada, but they had to go back home, so we didn't really know how that would work. So I moved in with my friends who were gonna stay here, and I still live with one of them, and it it's really good. Yeah.
So there's another question here. I know this isn't necessarily directed towards you, um, but there's a question, do you know any Iranian students at Lakehead? Can you introduce them? So we recently
Yeah.
did a Thunderwolf Thursday, I believe, or Thunderwolf Tuesday, one of our Instagram lives with a girl named Kiana who's from in
Hmm.
Iran, and she's studying the Masters of Science and Management, which is a part of the business administration faculty. And so she's definitely a good go-to. She's part of our global ambassador program on campus. So I know that she would be happy to chat with you for that student if you're willing to reach out. Check back on our YouTube channel to see some of those recorded sessions with her.
It's great.
Okay, so one student asks, how many hours of class do you attend on a given day at Lakehead University?
It ranges from 6 hours all to 1.5 hour to no classes.
For
It
sure.
really depends on how you choose your classes.
Hmm.
I think the most busiest faculty would be engineering, who have the most hours of classes in 1 week.
Hmm.
Um, but if you have electives, you get to choose on, and even if you don't have electives, if you have two classes for the same course, you get to choose which time you want to go. So it's not really that hectic. It's not that burdening. It's it's pretty smooth actually. It's not. You won't really feel like you're attending a bunch of classes at the same time, even if you have three classes.
For sure. And that also speaks to maybe the Canadian education system having the flexibility of selecting
Hmm.
their own schedule.
Yeah.
So in most cases, students are not prescribed a Monday through Friday type schedule where this is what you have to take and there's no flexibility. They actually get to register for the courses that they want based on obviously the requirements of their program, but
Hmm.
also in the cases where one course is offered in two or three different time slots, they can pick based on which one would they prefer. If the course is
Yeah.
offered at 8:30 in the morning and they're a morning bird, for sure. Early
Hmm.
risers, all the power to you. But if you're more of an afternoon person or even a night owl and you like to stay up late, you might want to pick a course that's closer to the end of the day. In some cases, obviously, the courses can be set in place, and that's when
Hmm.
you have to take it. And if it's a course requirement or a program requirement, um, you'll figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a morning person, and I had a few 8:30 classes. but it's part of the journey. It's a part of the educational experience. And I can't say that I didn't actually end up enjoying it. Like it's pretty fun. It's odd to say because I'm not a morning person, but it's all about like I get to see my friends first thing in the morning. I get to start learning. I get a head start on the day, and then typically on those days too, it forced me to go and study after that or finish a project after that
Yeah.
because I might have a break. You might have one class in the morning and then an hour and a half break or even a 3 hour break, maybe even larger, and you can go to the study on campus. You can go to Starbucks on campus. You can grab a coffee or a tea, and then you can just sit down and focus on your work. I'm going to check out some more questions. There's one great one. How much are scholarships and how can they be earned by a student? So I can speak to that, obviously, being the Lakehead employee. So for undergraduate students, we do have a scholarship grid where students that receive a Canadian equivalent academic average between 75 and 79.9 receive $4,000 Canadian in their first year. And then students that receive a Canadian equivalent average between an 80 and an 89.9 receive $5,000 a year, but in total they can the scholarship is valued at 20,000 because it is renewable for each year following that. So if you receive the $5,000 the first year, and then you maintain that the lower half of that, which is the 80%, you get it the second year, the third year, and hopefully the fourth year. And then our largest scholarship, of course, is tied directly to 90% and above for the Canadian equivalent average, and that's $7,500 every year. And for students looking to maintain that in years 2, 3, and 4, that value totals up to 30,000. Of course, you do need to maintain the lower half, which is the 90% average. If you were to fall below that, so say if you received the 7,500 in year one, and then your average fell to maybe an 85 or an 86, for example, you would actually just drop down to the next scholarship. So you would go down to the 5,000 a year, which is still a really great scholarship. So there's another question here. I know that you're in psychology, so can you explain Masters of Science and Masters versus Masters of Engineering? So that's a really great question. There's a It's hard to explain just because I'm not in the faculty of engineering, so I can't specifically elaborate on the difference between a master's of science in engineering versus a master's of engineering within a certain field. But I do encourage you, if you work with our faculty of engineering, you can connect with them directly, and I know they'd be happy to chat with you more in detail about that. Otherwise, is there other stuff that you want to highlight what future students should be advised about?
I think the big advice would be to not be nervous to chat with people when you arrive, because
For
it can
sure.
be a bit overwhelming coming from like a 30-hour journey or 24-hour journey, and then talking to people, speaking in a language that you never really spoken all day. But it's gonna be worth it, because building a network, building those connections, those are really important. Those help me a lot.
For sure, yeah, and building those connections, obviously, both personally with friends, but also professionally with your faculty and staff. Like we had already chatted about, pardon me, is the fact that a very important piece to your continuing education, the application to medical school in your case, or law school in other students' cases, is having recommendation letters from highly regarded individuals. And obviously, faculty members at Lakehead are highly regarded because they teach at a public Canadian institution already. Um, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Any more advice or?
Yeah, like Jordan said, that those individuals could help you really, and they can help you a lot, because in my case, when I first came here, I talked to one prof in my psychology department the first year,
Mhm.
and he recommended me to another prof who helped me with this research experience. And she has introduced me to a bunch of people from different places, not just Lakehead even, a bunch of places, and different people who hold a really prestigious positions in different groups, different clubs, and those are really helpful. And I think the other thing would be, when you come here, you probably gonna hear that Canadians are nice. people, and it's true. They really are nice people. Every person, almost every person I've ever met here, they're really nice. They're really honest, modest. They're really humble, and so don't be shy to talk to them, because if you talk to them, if you even make an effort, they would talk back, and they would make sure to include you in everything they do or everything that you're comfortable with.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely happy to hear that that's been your experience thus far. So I think that that kind of wraps up everything that we wanted to chat about today. For those viewers, if you still have questions for us, or if you're watching this as a recording, please feel free to send us a direct message on social media, send us an email. welcome@lakeheadu.ca is our general international email. Otherwise, I'll say ciao for now, and thank you so much for joining us.